We will now sing our opening hymn, number 1003, Where Do We Come From?
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society. We're grateful to gather today in person and online. Whether you join us today with joy in your heart, weighted with burdens, or searching for meaningful connections, we are glad that you are here. I'm the Reverend Diana Smith, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society. My pronouns are she and her. I am a white woman in my mid-40s with white and brown hair, wearing a blue dress and a pride flag stole, standing in our pulpit at the front of our sanctuary. Our sanctuary and the adjoining religious education commons are filling with people of all ages. And we connect through the window walls of our sanctuary to the outdoors, where it is a beautiful, cooling fall day. The changing of the colors of trees and the sightings of turkeys and deer are connecting us with the rhythm of the change of seasons, which is wonderful. As we gather, we give thanks for this land and all who have cared for it over the centuries. On this day before Indigenous Peoples Day, we particularly thank the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Sauk and the Meskwaki, and the Oceti-Sakowin nations, and recognize the legacy of colonialism that continues to impact us all. As people of many ages, genders, races, sexual orientations, classes, abilities, and health statuses, we know how important it is to gather and to work together to create a radically welcoming spiritual community. Our Unitarian Universalist faith expresses our core value of love through how we agree to be together and to support each other. We're guided by the shared principles, sources, and values of our living religious tradition. And this morning, we'll be continuing to explore our October theme of deep listening. Last week, we began this exploration by reflecting on how our gladness and the world's deep hunger meet, and how we can help enrich the spiritual lives of others as we listened to three members reflect on how they are nourished by and give back to this congregation. Today, we'll be continuing to explore deep listening as we learn about the idea of a holy no, and listen for where the holy no's and holy yeses are in our lives. As we continue the celebration of the gift of listening deeply, I invite you to notice how the idea of a holy no can reflect our values of love, equity, transformation, interdependence, and generosity. If doing something with your hands during our worship service helps you, we invite you to visit the soul work table outside the sanctuary doors and pick up something to do with your hands. If you're newer to our congregation, we invite you to learn more about us after the service. If you're here in person, you can talk to a greeter in the atrium, and if you're online, there's a visitor form in the YouTube show notes that will let us connect with you. And now our call to worship comes from Jason Saxon, who writes, "Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of day and the darkness of night, in times of hope and despair. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name and has many different names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves, in others, and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and to dance and sing. It's calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It's calling us to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. It's calling us into community. It's calling us into the greater life of all. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. Amen.
We will now sing hymn number 1029, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear. Please rise in body or in spirit. Love knocks and waits for us to invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life begin.
Good morning. I'm Kara Beauchamp, a worship associate and member of this congregation. I am a white woman in my very late 50s with white hair. My pronouns are she and her. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice as a symbol of sanctuary, safety, and hope, to unite us in worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for the light of truth. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words as Rory lights our chalice. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the wonder and mystery of this great gift. So let us now kindle the flame of our liberal religious heritage and renew our covenant of mutual love and care. Love is our doctrine, the quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to serve those in need. This we promise, this we covenant with life and one another. Each week, we light a candle for justice and healing, to acknowledge our interdependence with the natural world and with all members of the global community, especially the most vulnerable. This is a moment in which we can, in wide solidarity, kindle our commitment to heal the world. Today, as we light this candle, we acknowledge Indigenous Peoples Day. which will be observed tomorrow. Indigenous Peoples Day honors the perseverance and courage of Indigenous peoples, shows our gratitude for the myriad contributions they have made to our world, and renews our commitment to respect tribal sovereignty and self-determination. As I light this candle, we will hold a time of silence together.
Okay, so today we have a book that I am going to be reading. I see a lot of folks out there in the commons. If you want to come in and check out the storybook pictures, please come on in or come on up, or you can hang out there and just listen. Today, our storybook is going to be More Than Fluff, and we are talking about different kinds of no's and yeses that we say, and how we know when it's important to say no. So there are some times when we need to say no to something or someone in order to stay safe, or in order to honor what we know is right for our bodies. Can any of you who have joined us in the sanctuary think of a time like that, when you need to say no to someone or something in order to honor what you know is right? Dara, what do you think?
So one of my friends were just, I was just hanging out with them, and, well, this isn't my story, but this is a friend, and, this was at school, and a kid came up to them and pulled off their hijab.
Oh, okay, so Dara's sharing a story about a time at school when somebody came up to another kid and pulled off their hijab. That's a good time to say no to somebody, when somebody does something like that, pulls off somebody's important hair covering. So we might need to say no to someone when somebody does something dangerous, or wanted to give you a hug that you didn't feel good about, or does something really rude and disrespectful to somebody else. That's a really good story. Thank you for sharing that. It's a great time. You've got one, Alex?
Once at school, my friends kept touching me, and I said stop, but they kept touching me, and then I said no.
Mm-hmm.
They keep touching me, and then I called the teachers.
That's really great. So Alex was sharing a story with us about people at school touching him when he didn't want to be touched, and he said no. And when they kept touching him anyway, he called the teacher. So we're actually going to hear from a chick, a little fluffy chick, who has a similar story to yours, which is kind of interesting. So these are really great examples of times that we have to say no because somebody's doing something that we don't want. There are other times we need to say no to someone because they're asking us to do something that we know is wrong. So we're not going to share stories about that right now because I want to get to the storybook. But I did want to note that sometimes it's hard to know when to say no to someone or something. It might feel like we're being rude, but we know that sometimes we have to. And so we also know that sometimes we might worry about how our no might impact the community. We might not know if our saying no is going to hurt people's feelings, but we're going to find out what this little chick has to tell us about saying no. So this book is called More Than Fluff by Madeline Valentine. All right, here we go. Being fluffy. Oh, I missed the first page. Wait, maybe I didn't. Oh, nope. Okay, there it is. There it is. Daisy happened to be very fluffy. Being fluffy was all anyone noticed about her. Aw, aren't you the cutest little thing? I could just eat you up. Adorable, says the turtle. They squeezed her. Oh, can we go back? They squeezed her, they petted her, they kissed her. Actually, we needed to go for, oh well, okay, we're doing just fine. They popped up out of nowhere and tried to hug her. It ruffled Daisy's feathers. Only back at home could Daisy relax. And here she is lying on a couch thinking, why do I have to be so soft? I'm not just fluff, I have substance. And she's thinking about that, and little sibling comes over. What about a smooch? Something had to change. Daisy decided that the time was right for a new look. What is she going to do? It was spectacular. Whoa. But it was also pretty icky, a bit sticky, and super stinky. By the end of the day, Daisy was right back where she started. Daisy couldn't take it anymore. I am more than fluff, she yelled and pecked that poor little turtle's nose. Mom decided to have a talk. Daisy, honey, I know you're angry, but you can't peck others. But everybody cuddles me when I don't want them to. Have you tried telling them how you feel? Nicely, asked Mom. Daisy hatched a plan. And when the goose came over, saying, it's time for your afternoon cuddle, Daisy said, actually, it's time for you to give me some personal space. But I wouldn't mind a wing bump instead. And they got wing bumps. I don't want a hug, but thanks for offering. It's good to see you, she told the squirrel. With a little practice, Daisy got the hang of letting everyone know what she wanted. I'd prefer it if we didn't, but how about a high five, she told the squirrel. How about a low five, she said. Tail bump, pinky shake, super secret handshake, she told the turtle. And also, I'm so sorry I pecked you. Everyone learned to give Daisy some space when she wanted it. And she did the same for them. Aw, can I give you a hug? She asked the bug. Nope, no hug. Don't want a hug. I understand, she said. Daisy happened to be fluffy, and that suited her just fine. Would you like me to read to you before bed? Mom asked. Yes, please. I'd also love a good night hug and kiss, if you would. Oh, Daisy, I'm always happy to give you a hug and a kiss. Thanks, Mom, said Daisy. And that is our story. So in our book, Daisy learned about setting boundaries, right? You all told me some good stories about setting boundaries. Boundaries are limits that we set that let ourselves love us and somebody else at the same time. And I'm curious, were there things that you noticed Daisy doing to know what her boundaries were and talk about them with her friends? Anything? Maybe like she noticed what she needed and she told people, yeah, what do you have?
She said
Awesome. So Dara just gave me the really big C word, consent. And so some of the really cool things that Daisy learned is that she told people the kinds of things she didn't want, but she also told she told animals the kinds of things she did want. So she said what she didn't want, and she said what she did want, and she gave her consent. And she listened to other animals' boundaries too. So listening and learning to communicate our boundaries is really important. Sometimes even when we want to say no, we don't get to because it's a safety issue. Like we can't say no to a rule about wearing a bike helmet or not leaving the group at school or camp. And sometimes we don't get to say no to something like picking up after ourselves because the community needs us to, right? Alex, did you have a thought?
I forgot it.
Okay, that's okay. It's okay to forget the things we're saying sometimes. That happens to me too. Oh, so sometimes when we are listening for ways that we need to say no, we need to listen to what our bodies, our hearts, and say our no, and then hear from other people to help us. And that can help us honor what we know is right for us individually, while also honoring what others in our community need. So now we're going to sing. It's time that we will sing our kids to our children to religious education. Each week when they head to class, our children light a lantern as a symbol of the love and hope that goes with them as they explore our faith. Children, youth, and teachers, please come forward as, who's lighting our, okay, come on, Cece. As Cece lights our lantern from our chalice. Andrew will lead us in singing Be Open as children, youth, and teachers head to religious education. The words are on our screen.
Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Aye, 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 aye.
And now Pete Brokaw is coming up here to give us a stewardship update.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Pete Brokaw, and I'm here to give you a brief update on the stewardship campaign for the 2025 operating budget. As you probably know, the theme for this year's campaign is Committed to Caring, and our goal is to raise $400,000. Before I give you the latest update on our progress, I have a quick public service announcement, so stay with me. Many of you should have received a packet in the mail that includes a short letter, a pledge form, and a return envelope. Looks like this. You can send the pledge form back in the mail or drop it in the collection basket during the offering today. The pledge form also has instructions for submitting your pledge online using Realm. If you have questions about that, you can talk to one of us on the stewardship committee or give Maya a call in the office. If you have previously signed up with a sustaining pledge, that just means that your pledge from the current year will be carried over automatically to next year. So you don't have to do anything, right? It's all done automatically. But if you want to change that pledge, you do need to call Maya and let her know how you want to change your pledge, and she can take care of that for you. Some of you will receive the pledge information in person when our volunteer visitors come to visit you. That should happen in the next few weeks, and hopefully you've already set up a time to do that visit. So whether you get your packet in the mail or in person, we hope you'll take some time to review the material and think about your ability to support the important work that's being done here at UUS. The Board of Trustees and the Finance Committee are actively preparing the operating budget for next year, so it's really helpful for them to know how much has been pledged by the congregation as early as possible. And now, I'm happy to report that as of this morning, we have raised $192,983.13. We're nearly halfway to our goal, so thank you. Thank you to everyone who has submitted a pledge already or contributed to the Challenge Fund. If you haven't been able to return your pledge yet, there's no worries, but we'd love to hear back from you in the next few weeks. And don't forget that if you have submitted your pledge, we need your handprint to build out the mural that's in the hallway, one like this. And it could use a hand, get it? So if you get a chance, look at the mural. It's like on the other side of the glass windows there in the hallway. It's just being built now, so we need to build it up. We have construction paper and other things that you can use, like feathers, to show off your creativity. So look at that at the first table in the fellowship hall after service. So thanks.
Our congregation is made up of many people and many communities. We gather in many ways to learn, sing, laugh, share meals, try new things, and help repair our beautiful, broken world. Together, we create a community that nurtures us as we seek to live love more fully and fiercely into this world. This morning, Vicki Seifers is here to share about how connecting with UUS through the free lunch program has impacted her.
Thank you, Kara. My name is Vicki Seifers. My pronouns are she and her. I have gray and brown hair, and I'm wearing rust and green. 35 to 40 years ago, the community of Iowa City, some local volunteers conceived of the free lunch program, and they founded it. And our congregation has been participating for all of those years. Every month, we take the second Friday of the month, and we come together and make a lunch to serve 100 people, or usually more these days. Many people in this congregation have volunteered over the years to organize, to make casseroles, to bring fruit and veggies, and to come and help serve. Well, 4 years ago, we hit a bump in the road. We went into lockdown, and we could no longer make casseroles in our kitchen because we didn't know how the virus was transmitted. So Bonnie Pano went into overdrive, and she got a few people together. Carmen Griggs and Diana Miller raised money and ordered food from Hy-Vee, and we all went over there, and, well, the few of us, and we put on shields and masks and gloves and aprons, and we served meals through the window. It was surreal. But we kept it going. Bob Littlehale showed up, and he helped out. And now, 4 years later, we're in a new normal. Me and Frank Wildensee go out and buy food to make the main dish. We set the menu, and then we send out an email asking for people to come and help us. And on the day of free lunch, we start at 9 o'clock in the morning. I show up with the food. Four or five volunteers come and help cook the main dish. While the main dish is simmering, those volunteers leave, and the next shift shows up with fruits and vegetables to make fruit salad and veggie salad, and put together plates of cookies and bars. At noon, the third shift shows up to serve the meal. After the meal's served, towards the end, whatever we have left over, we let people take home. So we have takeout containers for people to take everything home. I used to have leftovers, but in the last 6 months, there have been no leftovers. Every single bite of food is gone. The last shift shows up at 12:30 to wash the dishes, and by 1:30, we're all done. So why do I do this? Well, I like the idea that it's a locally grown idea, and we've been doing it for 40 years, and our congregation has been part of this, and we never drop the ball. We show up every month, and we do it. I'm going to invite you to join the team. If you're interested, send an email to freelunch@uusic.org, and we'll put you on this list. We have a lot of volunteers. A few days before the lunch, we send out a sign-up genius, and you can go in real time, and you can see what needs to be done. You can see who else is working, and then you can come and help cook, or you can bring fruits or veggies and chop, or you can serve. And we always have a lot of fun in the kitchen because UUs are always discussing the pressing issues of the day. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for everything you've done. It really is a good feeling to help serve a meal.
Nurturing gratitude and how we understand and express interdependence is part of how we live into our Unitarian Universalist faith. As we enter into our time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, we acknowledge the joys and sorrows of our congregation. We do this by dropping stones into a bowl of water, symbolically immersing our personal joys and sorrows into the flow of all life's joys and sorrows. The water surrounds and holds the stone, just as we are surrounded and held by the love and support of this congregation. For those who would like to share their joys and sorrows in conversation in a smaller venue, the Pastoral Care Associates will be leading a compassionate connection circle in the Walnut Room immediately after today's worship service. These circles are opportunities to support each other in our lives' journeys. If you're participating in our service elsewhere, you may wish to meditatively hold a stone, wash your hands, or meditate on an object near you. And now, if you're in the sanctuary and feel called to do so, please come forward, take a stone from the basket, and place your stone in the water as we sing together.
I return to myself, here where I belong. I am coming home, like a bird to its nest, like a river to the ocean. I am coming home. I return to myself, here where I belong. I am coming home, like a bird to its nest, like a river to the ocean. I am coming home. I return to myself, here where I belong. I am coming home, like a bird to its nest, like a river to the ocean. I am coming home.
I invite you deeper into a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Spirit of love, we come to these moments today, carrying many things. Doubt and wonder, fear and loss, loneliness and seeking. We come here today also with wonder and gratitude. noticing the apples ripening, the chill in the air, the bounty of the fields, and the love that surrounds us. As we come to these times feeling so much, may we find moments of centering, moments of connection, of wonder and of gratitude. That help us deepen, that help us find that still small place that moves into the rest of the world, that helps us find love. Amen.
Our first reading this morning is an excerpt from Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab. The hardest thing about implementing boundaries is accepting that some people won't like, understand, or agree with yours. Once you grow beyond pleasing others, setting your standards becomes easier. Not being liked by everyone is a small consequence when you consider the overall reward of healthier relationships. People pleasers tend to be consumed with thoughts about what others are thinking and feeling. They want to appear as good, helpful, and inviting. For people pleasers, setting a boundary is especially hard because their worst fear is being disliked, on top of the fear of being mean or rude. These fears are often significant enough that people pleasers would rather suffer in relationships without limits than face their fears.
Margaret Fuller was born in 1810. That's 214 years ago. Even though many girls weren't given much education at that time, her father taught her a lot. By the age of 15, she was reading literature and philosophy in 4 languages, in addition to her other studies. Although she was brilliant, she was denied the educational opportunities enjoyed by her father and her male peers. She was very unhappy about the culture of the time, which believed that women could not be intellectuals, that is, deep thinkers and writers. But she persevered in her education. Unable to attend Harvard Divinity School, like her male Unitarian peers, people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, William Ellery Channing, and Theodore Parker, Margaret Fuller took it upon herself to create a place where women could discuss issues of ethics, education, theology, fine arts, and classical mythology, discussions that the male friends and husbands of her circle took for granted. She began holding salons, primarily for women, events she called conversations, in the Boston bookshop owned by her good friend Elizabeth Peabody. As topics of conversation, she often used the same books that were being discussed at the Divinity School. Having so many limits placed on her by the wider society made her feel a lot of compassion for other people. She became an activist for women's rights and an advocate for freeing enslaved Africans, federal rights for indigenous Native Americans, and economic rights for the poor. She was also a leading transcendentalist. She wrote a lot about her mystical experiences, times when she experienced connection with the divine or something larger in nature. She also edited a magazine called The Dial, which was the Transcendentalists' literary magazine. It was how they shared their ideas, and she was responsible for deciding what got published. She was one of the most highly paid public lecturers at the time, and she was the first woman to step foot in and use Harvard University's library. In 1845, Fuller's most influential work, Women of the 19th Century, was published. Peabody's bookshop had become a meeting place for the growing women's rights movement, and Fuller's book encapsulated the work of that community. Horace Greeley, in his review of the book, stated, "It was the loftiest and most commanding assertion yet made of the right of women to be regarded and treated as an independent, intelligent, rational being, entitled to an equal voice in framing and modifying the laws she is required to obey, and in controlling and disposing of the property she has inherited or aided to acquire. Hers is the ablest, bravest, broadest assertion yet of what are termed women's rights," end quote. In 1846, Margaret Fuller traveled to Europe. There, she became enmeshed with the uprisings in Italy and found a freedom that had eluded her in New England. She and a young Italian nobleman, Giovanni Asoli, had a child together in 1848. In 1850, she, Asoli, and their son returned to the U.S. On the voyage home, the ship was wrecked on a sandbar off of Fire Island, New York, and the entire family, along with most of the passengers, were killed. Most of her writings were lost. Perhaps you can hear why when I think about where holy no's have shown up in Unitarian Universalist history. One of the people I think of is Margaret Fuller. She noticed the boundaries that wider society was placing on her, listened for what her heart and mind were telling her about what she and the community needed in order to thrive, and replied with her own boundaries that attended to her needs as well as those of the community and helped society grow. This wasn't without hardship, not by far. That's how it is with boundaries sometimes. Some of Fuller's writings that have survived show how lonely she was through her teens and her early adulthood. They show how difficult it was emotionally and interpersonally for her to defy many of the standards of that time. And yet, they also show how aware she was of the conditions that allowed her to create her own path, and how that and her will to do so allowed her to grow. Some of the holy no's that show up in our lives are about the boundaries we create that help us individuals in relationship with others flourish. Boundaries can be, as Prentice Hemphill's write, how we shelter our authenticity, our real selves, and they are essential as we build relationships with one another. They are not about control, but rather are a way of resetting power dynamics in relationships, of restoring our sense of agency and choice. These can show up in resistance to injustice, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but they can also show up in how we interact with ourselves and others. As we learned from that little chick named Daisy earlier, healthy boundaries can help us notice what we need in order to feel safe and respected. I particularly like that story we shared earlier because Daisy learns something in it about how to listen for what she needs and how to communicate it, and the others learn to listen to her. But I also like it because Daisy and the community are clear about how they can have covenantal communications and keep everyone safe. Daisy isn't allowed to tread over other animals and the community's needs as she expresses her needs for bodily autonomy, agency, and choice. Daisy has her own holy nose, but so does the community. As Prentice Hemphill writes, relationship at its most mutual, most just, is negotiated. Holy nose can show up in what we know we need for authenticity, bodily autonomy, agency, personal agency, and choice. They can also show up in how we create covenantal communications, in how we develop and maintain right relations, in how we respond when we hear people talking about someone else, for example, or how we respond when we notice that other people's or the community's rights are being compromised. Like in that story that Dara shared about someone pulling off someone else's hijab. They can show up when we notice that we need new or different ways of interacting with each other, or better and more creative ways of engaging in conflict creatively so that our communities might thrive and live more fully into our missions. Now, originally, here I was going to talk about the possibilities that we might be able to engage with through our work with the Hope for Us team from the UUA and invite you into a session to learn more and ask questions after the worship service. However, a couple of the coaches who were working with us and who were to lead the session today were in the pathway of Hurricane Milton this past week. They had to evacuate and say no to joining us via Zoom today, but we will reschedule. In the meantime, though, I want to delve into the question of what might make a no holy and how we know it is. We do, after all, know that there are no's that are not holy. As we learned from Daisy's story, sometimes even though we want to say no, we don't get to, because there's a safety issue or because we need to respect the needs of other people and beings in our community. In contrast, our holy no reflects our values of love, equity, transformation, interdependence, and generosity. It helps us and our wider communities stay and feel intact. A holy no also creates space for a life and love-giving holy yes. And so holy no's for a minister might be doing things like setting and keeping a weekly Sabbath and taking other time off that allows her to nurture a deep spiritual life. Another one for this particular minister is saying no to late meetings, to overwork, and activities that don't work for my body so that I can rest and care for myself, manage my underlying autoimmune conditions, and enjoy the activities like hiking and gardening that keep me healthy. And another one is a minister having healthy relational boundaries with our congregations and in our personal lives that allow us to get our emotional and spiritual needs met in ways that maintain the health and integrity of the community. To hear whether something is a holy no, we have to be able to listen deeply for what our bodies and our hearts are saying about our limits and about our longings. Be courageous enough to share what we hear and then listen. That can help us honor what we know is right for us individually, while also honoring what others in our community need. And so, for now, I'll pause and then return to the holy no's of being a justice-seeking people, in addition to a relationally healthy people. But for now, Kara.
As we come together in the spirit of unity and love, we acknowledge the importance of supporting the community that nurtures us. We offer our contributions out of a shared commitment to our mission of fostering spiritual growth, promoting social justice, and building a beloved community. Every act of generosity contributes to the strength of this community. As part of fulfilling our mission, every week this congregation donates generously to an organization in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is the Domestic Violence Intervention Program, or DVIP. DVIP provides comprehensive support and advocacy services to victims and survivors of domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, human trafficking, and they focus on intermediate and long-term safety, empowerment, dignity, and hope. Services include a 24-hour hotline, in-person advocacy, criminal justice and economic support, and 3 emergency shelters with kennel services, peer counseling, therapy, support groups, and more. In the sanctuary, the ushers will collect the offering. All cash contributions go directly to our community partner agency. You can follow the instructions on the screen to give online. If you are writing a check, please use the memo line to designate the purpose. In addition to assisting our community partner, you may contribute toward your pledge or make a gift to support our operating expenses. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts. The second reading is a paraphrase of the Holy No, Worship as a Subversive Act by Adam Harlson. To speak the Holy No is to refuse to be complicit in the oppression and violence of the ruling power. It is the courageous critique of the present and its claims of immutability. The Holy No is the no of the Hebrew midwives, Shipra and Puah, who refused to play executioner for a paranoid despot. The Holy No is the no of Queen Vashti, who resisted being paraded before a drunken party. It is the no of the Canaanite woman, who refuses to take Jesus' no for an answer. It is the no of the psalmist who refuses to sing the songs of Zion while mocked on Babylon's riverbank. Still, the no does not end the conversation. The no stokes the creative process of subversion. The Holy No is a courageous yes to the future that God has promised. As UUS might say, Holy No is also a courageous yes to a future where justice is ever present. And Harlson answers, why does this matter? He lays it out for us. We live in times where the Holy No is desperately needed, where the church is conscripted to justify the violence of the government. Our worship practices need to be shaped by the Holy No. Where our churches preserve and hand down visions of exclusivity, judgment, and shame, our worship practices ought to reflect a different vision. Where our churches become entranced by triumphalism or mired in pessimism, our worship practices ought to call us back to a world full of both lament and celebration. Our worship is our response to the world.
A holy no, spoken in response to injustice, can be a powerful thing. It can also be a dangerous thing. It can change lives and our society. Many of you know that this is LGBTQ plus History Month and that Friday was National Coming Out Day. At such a time, it's important to remember that the history of the LGBTQ plus welcoming movement within Unitarian Universalism has been challenging, even as it's been invigorating. While congregations such as ours began welcoming gay and lesbian folks in the 1970s, LGBTQ folks in congregations often had a different lived experience of prejudice, ignorance, and exclusion from aspects of congregational life. The Welcoming Congregations program, which was launched in the UUA in the late 1980s, was designed to create institutional and cultural change. The holy no to homophobia grew and spread, creating opportunities for queer ministers like me to openly serve our congregations. But that work is far from done, both within our congregations and in the wider community. As we work on increasing trans and non-binary inclusion, and as we minister in a wider society that continues to pass transphobic, homophobic, and racist laws, our holy no's allow us to respond creatively and to create new holy yeses, as well as to join movements that do that. Another holy no that is particularly important to talk about today, on the eve of Indigenous Peoples' Day, is the holy no of the water protectors. In 2016, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe undertook a series of legal and water protection actions to prevent the construction of the Dakota Access Pipe near their reservation. The pipeline would carry crude oil through the prairies and into Illinois, endangering water and disturbing sacred sites. By the fall of 2016, the Indigenous nations' efforts touched off a global movement that brought tens of thousands of Indigenous activists, religious leaders, and others to the region to support the Oceti-Sakowin nations' efforts to protect their water and their rights. UUs were part of that holy no, joining our voices with the movement, which is not done. Some of the power of that work was that it was about solidarity and witness, as well as about protecting our sacred earth. You can read more about that in Reverend Karen Van Vossen's new book. Both of these holy no's are important to remember today because they're examples of times when the power of religious community has been used to reject visions of exclusivity, judgment, shame, and triumphalism, and create a different vision and a different reality. They're stories of people noticing where injustice was present, listening deeply for what they could do, responding with passion and creativity, and strengthening community through how they responded and with what they created. They're stories of our religious communities listening to those who are most impacted, listening for what is most needed, and finding the ways that we can authentically respond. For some, holy no's in response to injustice are the no's of Queen Vashti and the Canaanite woman. They are the no's of the individual, but when listened to, those can stoke a larger movement. They can create a larger subversive story of resistance. These stories that show us the beauty of the holy, yet these stories also show us the beauty of the holy yeses that come when we voice a holy no of injustice and then engage in the creative process that we're called to. These stories show us the importance of partial success, of engaging in a movement with hope that it's worthwhile, even when we're not sure how it will turn out, of being part of movements that are still in process. Because while the holy no's of justice are uncomfortable, while they demand that we lean into discomfort and engage with tension, they are part of the slow work of bending the moral arc of the universe toward justice. Sometimes they require quick, dramatic action, but they also require patience and perseverance. They require that we stick with justice and not give up, even though the work is long and it sometimes seems like we may never get there. And so, because the work is long and because it's relational, the holy no's of justice, of love lived in public, require us to celebrate the yeses that we create in the process. They invite us to dance while we discern, play while we plan, and celebrate while we collaborate. For in doing so, we nurture our spirits, Not only the joy that comes from finding where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need, but also the joy that comes from finding the ways that we can help our communities flourish, the joy that comes from leaning into mutuality and community care. And so, may we listen for the holy no's in our lives and communities. May we respond with openness and creativity, and may we say a courageous yes to a future where love and justice are ever present. So may it be. Blessed be. Amen.
May what has been shared today help us more fully affirm our interconnection and live into love and justice. Immediately after the service, we gather in Fellowship Hall or outside for conversation and community. If you're a newcomer, we hope you'll grab a snack and then sit down at any table so folks can join you for some conversation. For those who would like to share their joys or sorrows in conversation in a smaller venue, the Pastoral Care Associates will be leading a Compassionate Connection Circle in the Walnut Room immediately after today's service. Please note that the Hope for Us session that was supposed to happen after today's service is being rescheduled due to impacts from Hurricane Milton.
And now, to close our service today, we will sing hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. This song was written by folk singer Holly Neer. She spontaneously composed this song in November of 1978 to capture the mood of the people making their way to San Francisco City Hall after Harvey Milk, the first openly gay man elected to a public office in the United States, was assassinated. Please rise in body or in spirit. Gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are together, and we are singing,
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and our minds until we are together again.
As you go out into the world this day and this week, may you go deeply listening for the holy no's and the holy yeses of your lives and of this world. Go in peace, love, and justice, living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Amen. Blessed, blessed be.
Sorry about that last one. I had to pull out the other book and I wasn't.
No, you're good, you're good. Yeah, no, I thought we pulled it together nicely.
Yeah, we did.
I was like, oh, there's that scene. We can enter here.